Ghost Simulator is a very open RPG type game with lots of freedom for players to both explore and work on different stuff. However, when it comes to progression, there are a lot of time sinks and distractions that new players end up falling for that can easily be avoided, and some confusing areas that can be cleared up with the right knowledge. So in this video, I'll be covering the optimal path from my experience for players to follow through the main hub. When players first spawn into the game, there are already a lot of stuff competing for their attention. There's a lab behind them, a whole big map ahead of them, and a scattering of useful looking stuff. Players at this point should just ignore everything and go and talk to the first NPC that is on the path in front of them. This NPC, Ghost Hunter Gabe, will explain a lot about the game, including how to use the inventory, the different lab circles like sell and shop, and most importantly, how to play the game. This is of course if the player actually reads any of the dialogue, which happens less than expected. Once a player finishes this quest though, they almost always fall into the first big time pit in the game by talking to Ghost Hunter Dylan in the lab and trying to brute force their way through that quest for the rest of their time playing. This is mainly the quest's fault, since it is positioned where it's very easy to find and promises a mythical pet to players who complete it, which sounds very good to new players. The problem is that this pet is useless and the quests are extremely time consuming. Rather than working on this quest, the way to progress is to move on to Ghost Hunter Adam, which is in Block City, which can either be accessed by following this sign and path, or through the main teleport area at spawn, which is a very handy tool for navigating quickly. In general, any quest I don't mention in this video is to just be ignored, since there are many that are long and completely unnecessary. Anyways, doing Ghost Hunter Adam is pretty straightforward, with only small potential problems when it comes to finding his walkie-talkie or the incinerator, which are both located at the back of Junkyard. While working on Adam, you do encounter 3 NPCs. Go ahead and ignore Liz in Block City and Reed in the sewers, but players should go ahead and start Gramps in the Junkyard. Rather than working specifically on his quest like you do with Ghost Hunter Adam though, players should just leave it in their journal to passively be completed. Once you complete Ghost Hunter Adam, players gain access to one of the best perks in the game, the hoverboard. This allows you to move around much quicker at the expense of some maneuverability, and can be activated by either pressing the button in the bottom left or with the keys 1 or X. Players are also left kind of stranded with no real quest to move on to, with the few you have access to all being wastes of time. Rather than hop directly into the next available quest, players have to actually unlock the next antenna level, which is a little obnoxious, requiring a lot of items. Once they have that, they can proceed to the Wild West and start on Ghost Hunter Jesse's quests. Although very similar in structure when compared to Adam's quests, Jesse's will take a bit more time, requiring the player to go back to previous areas to gather old ghosts. This is a bit tedious and will take more time to complete, but the reward for finishing Jesse's quests, the magnet ability that allows you to automatically collect items, is really good and worth the time spent on the quest. There will be some side NPCs that players will see while doing this quest. Players should actually go ahead and start Gran in Area 51, similar to Gramps during Adams, and should probably complete and read the Dialogue of Hands to get a grasp of how gum works. Any other NPCs should just be ignored. Completing Jesse does leave you in the same predicament as Adam did, with an antenna upgrade to do on your own, but at this point you should be fairly comfortable with doing this. When you upgrade your antenna, you are met with a very familiar scene. A new NPC, Captain Finsley, who will give you a new perk for completing his quest. The beginning of this follows the path players are very used to by now, starting through quests slowly with 2 antenna upgrades over 3 normal areas along with a bonus biome. However, when they hit antenna level 10, the volcano biome, something big starts to unravel. Upon entering the volcano and looking around for a little bit, players see the first glimpse of the chaos they have entered. A new NPC standing next to a portal. This NPC is Ghost Hunter Blaze, and he should just be skipped. His reward is a horrible stat godly pet, and his quests, like Dylan's, are basically impossible. However, he is the start of a new type of NPC in the game, which gives the player a lot of the story and lore of Ghost Simulator, and although not helpful for progression, these quests become a big piece of the game moving forward. The portal I would also recommend players to ignore, in favor of focusing on completing Finsley, since at this point Finsley is about halfway complete and gives a really helpful ability. Once you complete Finsley, that will be the end of your time in Main Hub. One of the big things I didn't touch on in this video was getting good pets, and although this is needed for progression, it didn't really fit anywhere. Anyways, if you are looking for better stat pets at any point, there are some freebies that you can get by joining the Blockspite Roblox group and entering codes. These pets are much better in stats than anything players see during their time in Main Hub, and should be good enough stats to last through the rest of the game. For specific codes, you'll want to check the Ghost Simulator wiki, which I'll leave a link in the description of the video, but one big one that will likely still be available is the 2 years code. There are a few other NPCs that were unlocked by hitting Antenna level 10 that aren't super obvious, namely Luna in the forest and Human in the Wild West. These aren't super helpful for progression and should just be ignored. At this point, players are ready to move on through the portal and volcano, and if they already checked it out before, they know that what awaits them is Ghost World, a new and very different looking place. This place is probably the most confusing area in Ghost Simulator, and I'll be covering it in detail in a later video. So if this video helped you and you want to see more walkthroughs in the future, let me know by liking the video or leaving a comment. This would be my path for progressing through Ghost Simulator's main hub as quick as possible. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the game is very open and allows players to do many things, and many of the quests that I am recommending players to skip do provide some lore to the game. This route is purely for getting through the game in the easiest to understand and fastest way for new players. Now that is all I have for this video. If this helped you out, please let me know, since this video took quite a bit of time to make, and I probably won't be making any more in the future if this video doesn't do well, and I will see you guys hopefully in whatever I decide to make next.